Demodcracy is next. We'll watch your Elden Ring DLC critique at some point, Joseph Anderson. I'm not finished with you. Oh. Oh. Look at that.
No matter what type of severe
Look who has come to eat crow. Oh my god.
You have. Tespire can help you have fewer attacks and relieve your...
This video was made specifically for people like me to fucking jack off to. Alright, let's go.
Rather than shirk the criticism, I read every single one of your comments. They brought to light many flaws in my video production.
Oh wait, no, we're not speeding this up. I might slow this down, if anything. Fuck. I'm gonna make some coffee. We're gonna fucking savor this. Feeble King, you're next, right? I can't wait for your turnaround video. Guys, I have a problem. Being a bitch like this is too much fun. I don't even want to play games anymore. I just want to do this for the rest of my life.
Is to share my enthusiasm for games I love, and to create a space where you can do the same. Taking a look at my video essay playlist, the last 5 videos are complaining about Shadow of the Erdtree, complaining about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, complaining about Cyberpunk 2077, complaining about Elden Ring, complaining about Marvel's Avengers.
Alright, hang on.
A banner job showing the joy of play. Are there aspects of these games to critique? Naturally. Nothing is perfect. But did I need to make it the one-sided emphasis on my commentary? Absolutely not. It doesn't really matter if my criticisms are valid. Only showering you in negative impressions creates an unpleasant outlook.
That's something that Feeble King did too.
Look, when mixed with increasingly...
It's almost like you people are desperate to court controversy.
Sparse uploads, a pattern is created where I crawl out of my curmudgeonly cave every few months to wax poetic about my latest hate train, fading further into obscurity each time as viewers lose faith in my ability to provide thoughtful, balanced analysis. Posting relentless one-sided criticism.
I never had faith in you to do that, even before I watched your Elden Ring fucking DLC video, bro. You've always been a dumb fuck as far as I'm concerned.
Creates the image.
He's cucking so hard. Yeah, this is also like fucking pathetic.
Cynical, bitter asshole. It's like that friend who watches as your group raves about something they're passionate about, only to chime in with, actually, I found the such and such to be
Actually, it's
shallow
nothing like that. Why are you putting yourself down so hard?
and pedantic.
It's nothing like that at all. You offered an unsolicited opinion, but nobody has to click on it.
Yeah,
Like, that's not okay.
Is insufferable. I refuse to let my content continue in the same...
This isn't because he thinks he's wrong. It's, yeah, of course. Yeah, no,
I'm returning to
obviously.
my mantra of emphasize passion for gaming above all, and it starts today. Believe it or not, I actually loved Shadow of the Erdtree.
This is, you know what? This is why I get so fucking pissed off and I scream at these people. Is because like, when I change my mind, it's because I'm convinced. It's not because like there's backlash. Like, fuck off. Oh my god.
It's
Have a
possible
spine,
for subjective
fucker.
flaws to be a drop in an overwhelmingly positive bucket. I want to change the bleak perception I gave by sharing everything I appreciate Elden Ring for, and along the way, we'll dispel some of my ill-conceived complaints. You are now tuning into Demod's overdue love confession for Elden Ring. I won't lie and pretend I'm some sort of art aficionado. What I can tell
Bro,
you
that's
is
what
that
your channel is about. That is literally what you do in every single other video.
Elden Ring's assets tickle the part of my brain that wears a monocle, puffs a pipe, and says, yes, quite, indeed. In layman's terms, the game is drop dead gorgeous. From my novice eye, Elden Ring holds a certain je ne sais quoi, an enigmatic character that breathes unique life into the lands between. Take my favorite example, Firejet.
Can we just get back to you like swaying out a bunch? That was fun, at least.
Towering over you, the ominous facial midsection, frayed braids.
I'm just gonna praise stuff that everybody loves about Elden Ring. Okay. That's cool.
Rusted adornments, and burns decaying its flesh. The last line of defense at the end of a path were riddled with dead peers. I wondered, how was he left standing?
That's not fast enough, actually.
Appearance suggests battle, or being worn down by time, while his disturbing body strikes fear beyond his size and a morbid curiosity into the power it holds. Perhaps the key to his survival. An inclination that is answered in brutal fashion. FromSoft is a superstar at this type of visual storytelling. I don't have to be deeply connected with the accuracy of the lore. They leave gaps for you to fill in your own impressions. It's compelling to do so thanks to the strength of their art, allowing you to take an active role in world building. It makes it exciting to see more pieces fall into place during your adventure, and I'd be thrilled for what the DLC would present. It didn't disappoint. The Shadow Realm holds some of Elden Ring's most stunning set pieces.
Okay. Alright. I guess I didn't pay attention to the beginning of that. That was like him building up to how the DLC compares. to that experience.
The cerulean coast, the lush paradise of Ra's ancient ruins, the tranquil peace of Marika's birthplace, the unsettling vast chasm of the Finger Ruins, beholding the majesty of Mikola's crosses, Nidra's grotesque transformation, and the madness that follows. The chilling lead up to it with seemingly invincible caretakers, the crimson hue of Mesmer's Inferno, death-defying descent.
It's this fucking spinelessness that runs through everybody who makes videos about this shit too, because People King did the exact same fucking thing. He hedges his criticisms like 8 different times in the fucking same video. Maybe I haven't optimized these bosses yet. I don't hate all these bosses once mastered. What do you want me to do with that? Okay.
Layer, the Coliseum of Chaos where Egon screams
Giving himself a fucking backdoor because he knows this shit opinion that he didn't. That's a shitty fucking half-baked opinion.
Discourse to Baal, and the breathtaking throne of a reborn lord in all its majesty. Elden Ring remains one of the most visually stunning games ever made, and it will take more than continued one-upsmanship and graphical fidelity to overcome FromSoft's masterclass in art direction. All of those aforementioned areas make up Elden Ring's sandbox and what I like to call the theme park from hell. Elden Ring has intrigue brimming around every turn. The allure creates a rewarding loop of discovery, with enough depth to sink dozens of hours into. Open world experiences are at their best when you can wander, spot a point of interest, head to it, then bump into 5 more fascinating finds before you even reach it. Shadow of the Erd Tree is a shiny—
I think being a streamer is going to turn me into a misanthrope again. I've taken it as a general policy that hating all of humanity is cringe for many years now, but I'm getting back there, man. Fuck. All right, I gotta grab my coffee. It's ready. Please never make another open world FromSoft game. Yeah. Yeah, because fucking FromSoft fans don't deserve it. That's the reason why.
Shining example. Excusing a few well-hidden areas and shadow fragments, it was intuitive and enjoyable to find most of the DLC's highlights organically. The deafening expanse of Nidra's bleak forest turned the intrigue loop on its head, hot dungeons added a fresh crypt that unveiled their sordid origins, and tangos with the Furnace Giants asked ingenuity of the player to earn meaningful rewards. Thanks to the internet, if you're ever feeling
It's like,
stumped,
okay, here's... Oh my god. They've had complaints about the games for years, but they never wanted to say them because they knew they'd be told to get good. But then once it was popular to say those things about Elden Ring and all the Elden Ring bosses, suddenly the floodgates fucking open. That's why every single fucking criticism is nonsensical and has like 18,000 examples in the Dark Souls series that you could point to. This is why we need to keep telling people to get good. This is why we need to be toxic, okay? They want to criticize us for being the way that we are. This is what happens if you don't.
You have more resources at your fingertips than you could ever need. This allows you to get as much organic exploration as you desire, and ensure you don't miss out on any vital experiences with a helping hand. Games like this force me to let go of my completionist hunger and enjoy them as theme parks. Experience the majority of attractions that appeal to you, and nod with grace toward those that exist for differing interests. Elden Ring takes the best of open world games—
I'm getting like really actually mad. I need to chill for a second. I'm so sorry. Okay.
Progression.
All right.
To the mix, rewarding time invested. Their tried and true execution of that progression remains one of their greatest strengths in Elden Ring. Unlike RPGs at their grindiest, there's no need to farm. In fact, I'd argue if you're a diligent explorer, you end up more than powerful enough to take on the game's hardest challenges. And yes, this is true.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you.
No, it is not mandatory to get all the shadow fragments. I certainly didn't. I found them at a steady pace until I ended the Brahmis Consort's brief reign with 18 blessings. While I do still feel they could have tied more fragments to bosses,
18?
I can see—
Ooh, scrub. I was at 14. Fuck you.
that the updated system with early exponential scaling
I'm trying to get back into a more lighthearted zone before I stroke out.
is more than enough to solve the problems I outlined in my previous video. It was short-sighted on my part to suggest further improvements when I hadn't even tested the update, only basing my critique on my initial playthrough completed in the first few days. I also need to admit my point about their
Toxic
usefulness
era?
being—
Yeah, this is my toxic era. You're correct to identify it as that. It's all we're all edges right now. What did you wait? Did I miss something ridiculous? You're typing like I did.
is more than enough to solve the problems I outlined in my—
You know what? No, I think I was about to say I'm all edge and no point. No, I'm both, bitch. All edge, all point. Does that make sense? No. I don't fucking care.
previous video. It was short-sighted on my part to suggest further improvements when I hadn't even tested the update, only basing my critique on my initial playthrough completed in the first few days. I also need to admit my point about their usefulness being poorly communicated.
I literally didn't listen again. I'm so sorry.
While I do still— shadow fragments, I certainly didn't. I found them at a steady pace until I ended the Brahmis Consort's brief reign with 18 blessings. While I do still feel they could have tied more fragments to bosses, I concede that the updated system with early exponential scaling is more than enough to solve the problems I outlined in my previous video. It was short-sighted on my part to suggest further improvements when I hadn't even tested the update, only basing my critique on my initial playthrough completed in the first few days.
Was he even worse? When did he upload his? Was it even before Feeble King?
I also need to—
He always is pretty quick on it, I feel like. He releases videos pretty regularly. I kind of want to do a deep dive on this guy instead of Joseph Anderson because he's dumb as hell. Like
my point about their—
I really have thought for a while that he didn't really get a lot of the stuff he tried to talk about.
Their usefulness being poorly communicated is one of the worst points I've ever argued.
Like, even back when I thought People King was smart, I thought this guy was dumb.
I personally had no issue understanding how vital they were. I base my perception off of complaints I heard in the first 48 hours when information wasn't as readily available, and the vocal minority
Okay.
was crying foul. Speaking for
You understand how bad that sounds, right?
others that had their perceptions well changed by the time my video dropped, was stupid, misguided, and distracted from any
Okay,
worthwhile criticism
I guess
had
you
of the
do.
system. And finally, while a select few are hidden in obtuse ways, the vast majority aren't difficult to find if you explore thoroughly, more than enough to finish the DLC comfortably with the update. Even if I'd personally weight more their discovery toward combat encounters like the cases of Golden Hippo or Commander Gaius, there are just as many of you that prefer them tied to
Yeah,
exploration.
there is an air of jealousy that I won't deny, because like it is I do feel like I have a lot more understanding than the dumb fucks who choose to make content about this game, and a fraction of the audience, obviously, but that's fine. Explicitly saying my critiques have no legitimacy. Yeah, nobody should take this guy seriously ever again, by the way, or Feeble King, or like anybody who made a video with that lacking in understanding about the DLC when they want to be so definitive and objective, because everybody wants to be so objective in their criticism whenever they make one about these
Approaches
games.
are valid, and in hindsight, I'm glad both are well represented in the DLC.
And you know why? Because they don't want to be told to get good. They want to feel like they're really backing something up. But every time they try to explain themselves, it sounds like they're talking about Dark Souls again.
FromSoft found a commendable solution to a difficult problem: how to make a DLC challenging when players had endgame builds raring to go after 2 years of power scaling. In spite of my hyperbolic titles, their update is a testament that they understand how to properly provide balanced, compelling progression.
In KCD 2, whatever you do as Henry will have consequences.
I'm just getting started.
The core of Elden Ring's strength over its predecessors in progression lies in the value of build diversity. Past games boasted a few de
All
facto
of his
builds that
videos
reigned
are
supreme
like
well above their
ranking
competition, whereas Elden Ring
videos?
has dozens of quote-unquote overpowered builds.
Oh,
For all my belly aching
alright.
about overscaled solo difficulty, I fail to convey how
I
many
don't know
tools
if
you
there's
have at your
even much I
disposal
can
to
do
even
with
those
that,
odds. That's in
besides
part
just
due
be
to my
like,
own
what?
approach. I tend to stick with one build for an entire playthrough and woefully underutilize powerful consumables. I ignored shields, meaning no guard counters or parries, and I rarely use incantations or spells. It's
Okay.
disingenuous of me to say Elden Ring doesn't provide you with tools to succeed in amplified combat just because I
Yes,
chose not
that's
to use them.
true.
Even spirit summons fall under this umbrella. They may drastically reshape encounter difficulty, but they are an intended tool. There's really no excuse not to try other builds. Elden Ring made respecs easier than ever with ties to an early game story boss. There's more smithing stones than you could ever need, runes free flow by the millions in the DLC with plenty of well-known farming spots in the base game, and infusion can be swapped on the fly thanks to Ashes of War, which are almost universally incredible and should be experimented with in equal measure.
He is
Testing out
just
what
the
different tools
first of the
select-
rats to scurry back into his hole. I have no respect for this behavior. This is disgusting. We should all remember that this is disgusting.
that can help you determine how to minimize the strength of encounters and exploit their weaknesses. Bosses across all FromSoft games have always followed this format, but Elden Ring is paralleled in its willingness to alter your approach and just how powerful it makes each of the available
Okay, I'm bored by this. We're gonna watch something else so I can make fun of him more. They should make all their games harder? Yeah, definitely. I feel like they really should, yeah. If the first boss of the next game isn't as hard as Radahn in the DLC, I'm gonna be mad. Oh wait, here's his original video. Okay, let's see how sure you are of yourself in this one, knowing that the take back video now exists. Oh, I'm so happy. This is such a beautiful
FromSoft's
day.
latest expansion spawned a whirlwind of discourse on difficulty. Countless FromSoft fans are sounding off with complaints of excessive challenge. Iron-willed challenge runners are calling foul on the DLC's difficulty
Okay,
peaks.
this one I won't speed up because we wanna listen to this one actually.
And somehow journalists have taken this opportunity for revenge on years of memes at their expense, telling you, yes you, dear viewer, are a scrub. Clearly a sign of the end times. I foretold the coming of this cataclysm 2 years ago. In my award-winning video, Elden Ring bosses are an unbalanced disappointment.
Oh, he hates
It's a
the base
metaphorical
game
word, of
too?
course, in that I'm enjoying this
Yo.
controversy from a rickety high horse.
I could get so much
Steam
material
has
out of this guy.
long since crumbled under the weight of the Shadow Tree. Today I'm gonna recount my tumble back to Earth, so strap in for a lengthy sequel, one I'll break down into parts for ease of consumption. Part 1, The Build. Up. On February 28th, 2023, at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Bandai
Journos have been maligned for too long. I'm glad they shat on the Souls vets. Yeah.
Namco Twitter,
Me too.
now known as X, after being purchased by the loathsome Dung Eater. Look, you get it. You're here, you know Shadow of the Erdtree. The hype was bonkers. Elden Ring took a mere 2 years to reach sales the entire Dark Souls trilogy took over a decade to achieve. I'm sure you were a part of that. Or perhaps you saw the hate mob passing out pitchforks and thought the ruckus looked fun.
I don't know what this says, but I'm so used to the DLC's pacing, I legit thought he like slow motion Market just now.
It took a mere 2 years to reach sales. The entire Dark
I was
Souls
like, wow,
trilogy took
why would he
over
do
a
that?
decade
And it's like,
to
oh, he
achieve.
didn't. It's just.
I'm sure you were a part of that. Or perhaps you saw the hate mob passing out pitchforks and thought the ruckus looked fun. I myself, despite my reservations, was optimistic. Perhaps FromSoft listened to feedback, and their new scaling system would remedy our woes. To approach things with a fresh eye, I decided to try something new for the first time in the DLC.
Oh my god.
I wanted to power stance. For those unaware, wielding 2 weapons of the same class enables.
You really think that's something new? All right. I thought he was gonna actually do something that was gonna make anybody mad,
special moveset
or like be
utilizing
controversial in any way to the vets.
both weapons. I set my eyes on great stars. A pair of bloody maces perfect for the job thanks to the availability of 2 early in new game. They have great poise damage, innate bleed, and allow for custom.
Dude, do you know how quickly I would have cleared the DLC if I had a build like this?
Or putting my triple-digit playtime to good use, I quickly
And he's
slaughtered
still
the
gonna
base
bitch.
game, maxing
Oh my
both weapons
God.
early with occult infusion.
How do I not
courtesy
just
of the
scream
Guts
get good for the next 20 minutes?
Splunge. This flip has obscene hyper armor and poise damage, further buffed by my stone barb physic. Finishing the build at level 150 with 9 mandatory vigor totals and everything else funneled into arcane, the stage was set to prematurely end Mog's dynasty. I descended to the Foul Omen's lair and introduced him to the true
Mog?
Lord of Blood. My build was strong, perhaps the strongest I've ever used. Poise breaks, bleed procs, and chunky dual
Oh my
hits
god, I'm gonna, this is all, it's the recursive Filja problem where I'm gonna accuse everybody of not liking these games, because like, how do you not know how to pronounce Mohg's name? They say it in the fucking game. You have a channel about these games. Okay, it's fine.
Smashed the base game to pieces. Surely I was ready for what the DLC had in store. With great anticipation, I kissed Miquella's ring and made my way into the land of
None of you have the credentials necessary
Part
to
2,
be doing this.
Humble beginnings. I was shocked to find overworld enemies dying with relative ease. They packed a punch, sure,
They won 49
but 2 to 3
levels
bonks
higher
of my
than their
own
last
is all it took
no-kill.
to serve up pancakes. I began beaming with confidence, my heart melting to let hope seep in. The more I explored, the more real a realm where bosses don't have loaded HP and excessive damage became.
Wow.
Oh,
Hey, I think he just described the central gameplay loop of Elden Ring. Crazy.
humbled all right.
I'm not sure what context that was in, but I'm pretty sure it was him complaining, because that's how this tends to go, where they like just say something.
Part 3, The Hunt for Shadow.
Yeah,
Curating the perfect build is not enough to carry you through the DLC. Instead, you need to prostrate yourself to the Church of Shadow, taking communion from its fragments to bolster attack and defense. Translating to roughly double damage and half damage taken over the course of 20 blessings, tracking down Shadow Tree fragments is vital to weathering the DLC. Let's talk about why
All right,
this system
I'm going to call this the Filja effect until I think of a better name. And it's people who claim to love these games, yet like when you really talk to them about it, you can't like put your finger on a single thing that they would love about them. You know.
failure. Introducing a separate upgrade path into an already established game is a tough sell. You need to reprogram dozens of hours in the lands between that reinforced how we understand Elden progression. It all starts with Margit. Foul tarnished. Come back when you've emboldened those flames of ambition
I love
a
this
little
game.
brighter.
Elden
Like
Ring?
leveling
Yeah,
to
it's
at
great.
least 30 and getting some weapon upgrades. From the very beginning, we learned
play
that
it all the
leveling our
time.
stats, acquiring better gear, and upgrading it is the best way to even the playing field. The more we explore, the stronger we become. The same is true for shadow fragments, right? Explore the shadow realm to claim as many pieces as possible.
Yep.
There's a key difference. Runes can be obtained anywhere, anytime. Smithing stones are concentrated in specific areas you discover intuitively. Talk to one of the many merchants to find a handful for sale. Find the orange highlighted caves to reveal a network of upgrade gold mines. The most important quality that runes and upgrade materials have in common is their quantity. Through bell bearings and an endless stock of baddies to farm, you can acquire
Sorry, I'm
as much as you
disassociating right now because they're just all the same.
desire.
Aren't they?
Yet you don't see every tarnished touting 1 billion runes and enough stones to build a second Stormvale castle because the time required would be astronomical for diminishing returns. Every player has their own stomach for it. Some players refuse to go out of their way at all, instead banging their head against whatever walls they encounter until they break through. At the opposite end of the spectrum, you have cheddar enjoyers that spend
You don't
hours
need to
committing
explain Elden Ring to people watching a video about the DLC, man. I promise.
avian genocide.
I'm better than the streamer. All right. Man, that's crazy. I'm dog shit at exploring, and I found every Skidoo tree fragment before guides were even out, probably. Well, I didn't, but
Most players fall
whatever.
somewhere in between. They deviate from roadblocks, explore a modest amount, and try again with better stats. Margit taught us very few bosses are a strict gate to progress. Let's return to my death at the hands of Rolana. I had acquired 5 blessings. Her brutal damage output made me reconsider if that was enough. Yet I spent 5 hours scouring the opening area as thoroughly as I felt I could. For all I knew, I had more blessings than average, and this was the new standard of difficulty. It wasn't like with Margit when I got whooped walking out of the character creation screen. I had a full-fledged build, boasting 60 vigor and 80 arcane, with fully upgraded dual great stars and maxed out crimson flasks, instead of having multiple options.
No, I can't. I can't focus on it if it's too fast.
To progress, like farming runes, looting caves, befriending blacksmiths, and communion from the churches, you solely increase your odds by finding fragments. Notice, I didn't mention golden seeds. It's because while you can find them at small trees similar to Miquella's crosses,
Point is, they aren't hard to find.
only a fraction
Yeah.
of the total available. These technically consistent portions are a drop in
I did
the
go out of my way
ocean
to
of
do it.
Elden
Yeah,
Ring's
I mean,
map.
like, yeah, you
Stumbling
got to
upon-
put some effort into it for sure. Like, you're not just gonna find all of them naturally. But I haven't. Wait, you know what? Yeah, I did find all of them because my New Game Plus character is full blessing level now. So yeah, it's not hard at all.
Upon them relies on
Fucking-
extensive exploration. The devs seem aware of this, as they included far more seeds than you actually need to fully upgrade your flask. Why they didn't afford the same logic for Shadow Fragments, your guess is...
Do people just make fun of DS3 for having like 2 linear level design because it's like a guilty pleasure of theirs? So they're like trying to throw people off? Because it really does seem like you just hate exploration. Man, I don't know.
is as good as mine. To their credit, you are given a map of Miquella's crosses that expands as you progress through the story, but again, these represent a fraction of the whole. A total that includes ridiculously obscure locations, like a tiny indent in a nondescript cliff. Out of the massive cerulean coast, I needed to happen upon this tiny crevice. Discoveries like this encouraged me to hug cliffs and rotate clockwise around the map, praying I wouldn't miss anything. Which, frankly, sucks.
He's kidding, right?
I enjoy exploring Elden Ring. It's
No,
one of
of
the game's
course
biggest
he's not.
strengths. The base game is designed in such a way that you don't need to see everything for a balanced and fun playthrough. In fact, it's to your benefit. The more you explore, the more
Wow.
you realize how frequently assets are recycled to give the illusion of depth. The uniqueness begins to fade into tedium when you go the completionist route. I point again to golden seeds as evidence the devs understood this. Another example
God, this is
only
just so
needing to
fucking boring. Like he's, oh my god.
slay 2 demigods
How do
to
people
access
watch this?
the capital city. It's not that they don't think it's worth killing every demigod, but they realize the average player isn't gonna find them all. So they chose not to leave you progression locked against more obscure lords like Rickard. I don't understand why this logic changed for the DLC. Doing my 10th
didn't.
lap around the Shadow Realm in the hopes of stumbling upon some unturned stone that may not even exist is maddening. Which brings up another issue: how poorly this system is communicated. I keep harkening back to Margit's
True, Katie has 0 deaths in the whole game. Best Elden Ring player in the world. Fucking, until anybody can step to those stats.
stone wall of newbies, encouraging you to explore and
People like
progress.
being
If he deals
spoon-fed,
too much
true.
damage to you, you can immediately see tangible benefit in leveling vigor. Your HP bar is larger, your margin of error increases. Same is true for damage. You upgrade a weapon and it receives a nice +X next to it, signifying the attack increase. While the offensive
Man,
and
at
defensive
least People King knew how to like put a compelling hot take together. This is just like fucking mind-numbing. I watched this before. I don't remember it being like this.
benefits from blessings have the same effect, it's much less intuitive. You only get a golden highlight over your existing stats. Your HP bar doesn't change, there's no upgrade to your weapon.
And
You just
multiple
trust the game
pop-ups
that
with
you're
the
now dealing
fragments and
more and
blessings,
taking
yeah.
less damage. Why not extend the upgrade level of your weapon for each blessing?
Yeah, there
Why
were
not
maps that guide you to that. Wait, what?
trust the game that you're now dealing more and taking less damage. Why not extend the upgrade level of
It shows you the numbers, man. What? Can you not read?
have the same effect, it's much less X next to it, signifying the attack increase. While the offensive and defensive benefits from blessings have the same effect, it's much less intuitive. You only get a golden
yeah,
highlight
it
over your
is.
existing
It's a little-
stats. Your HP bar doesn't change, there's no upgrade to your weapon.
But like when you hit the boss, the number's higher. How much simpler do you need it to, like it's kind of hard to figure out on the stat screen just because there's so much information there, but like it's very obvious that you're stronger when you go up a blessing level. Like you can tell right away.
Weapon, you just trust the game.
It makes a very noticeable difference, especially if you play pure melee.
You're now dealing more and taking less damage. Why not extend the upgrade level of your weapon for each blessing?
Or just keep track of the numbers. Yeah, just don't be as lazy as me. It's not that hard.
Not add increases to your HP bar. This would be more obvious ways of communicating the importance of the system in a way the player already understands. It may seem arbitrary, and it is.
If it's that fucking important to you, put some effort into doing it yourself then. It's not that big of a hurdle. Yes, the interface is unintuitive. Welcome to RPGs. You're gonna have a great time. Jesus Christ.
Player understanding is vital to get them to engage in a new system. Why is the Shadow Fragment system a failure? If the player base doesn't understand their importance organically, that is on the developers. It's their job to emphasize how crucial they are in a digestible way through gameplay, not nudges from the Bandai Namco Twitter or Steam announcements telling players to count their blessings. When players do understand their importance, it is on the developers if searching since they have less value. I think a better update would be to lower the total blessings you need to cap. Make it so the first 10 levels only require 1, 11 through 15 require 2, and 16 through 20 require 3. That would reduce the total necessary to 35.
Like, am I just expecting him to meet me on my level? Am I just expecting things from these people they're not capable? All right, I'm done being a cunt. Well, no, I'm not, but at least that much.
The all-important first 10 levels more quickly. A gentler curve and a reduction in the overall total will reduce the pain of missing out on a random pot enemy holding an all-important fragment. Any extra the player finds could be converted into runes, a boon to an already infinite resource that is helpful, but not mandatory.
Yes,
Or
I do agree that there should be more. That would be nice. It's really not that big of a deal that there's not, though, and people latch onto these nitpicky criticisms because that's all there actually is, aside from the skill issue shit.
Relied on past success. Sekiro had the perfect blueprint. Mini bosses that increase HP and defense, while beating full bosses increased attack power. This works so well because Sekiro has light progression locks that insist you get a certain level of attack power.
That's all that there is that isn't like something that requires like a deeper understanding to get, I think. I don't know.
Elden Ring sacrifices this strictness in favor of freedom, which isn't a bad decision in a vacuum, but when the world and its fragments are so widespread and obscure, it makes progression an inconsistent mess. Wow, all of this inspired by a single
the only mistake, I'm pausing this guy so much. Maybe I should just watch something else, honestly, but the only mistake, as far as I'm concerned, from FromSoft made with Elden Ring, like the biggest mistake, maybe we could say, is fucking overestimating their fans.
Lana, maybe my belly aching isn't justified when I could just, dodge.
Let's watch
Adventures
Twilight.
Log,
I don't want to
Day
watch
13.
Twilight, Katie. You're probably never going to get me to watch Twilight. I'm sorry. I'm just going to rip that Band-Aid off right now. I'm very uninterested in Twilight.
Combos everywhere.
Oh god, here we fucking go.
Shadow fragments, these combos go to infinity and beyond. It's the
I
same
know,
crap
I'm
we saw in the
sorry,
base
Katie.
game
I'm being mean.
on steroids. Somewhere along the way, FromSoft decided to patch out your turn. Gone is the ebb and flow style
I just don't care. Like, why?
of combat where you trade equal offensive gambits. Most of the time, you're forced to solve for tiny gaps, sneaking in a single measly attack. That's if you evade everything preceding it, otherwise that's now a healing window. Losing damage openings for recovery extends the fight duration, increasing the likelihood you'll make more mistakes. This creates a loop of getting hit, healing, rinse and repeat until death arrives. You are of course expected to learn from your mistakes and overcome them in subsequent attempts. Due to the razor-thin error margins though, this process is more daunting than ever.
I don't know, pick something else that you like and maybe I'll say yeah.
The perception of fairness. Everyone's tolerance for this formula will vary. I consider myself on the more masochistic, tolerant end of that spectrum. I've speedrun the majority of
you're wrong.
their games, done challenge runs like Soul Level 1s, and rarely cry foul unless I feel it's warranted.
Okay, you've done all that, you still fucking didn't get the point. That's crazy. This is a self-report more than anything else. He's acting like it's bragging rights, but it's not.
Spoiler warning, for the final
Or not
boss,
even just credentials. No, it's a self-report.
1. Because that's the only thing you'll be avoiding in Phase 2, as what minute holes Radon has in his combo strings are now filled with holy flashbangs. Blistering
Radon has really big openings, actually. I get that his combos can go on for a long time, but I don't know. They really reward you for surviving them.
attack speed, airtight gaps between attacks, instant gap closers, huge attack radius, minimal downtime between combos. You name it, Radon has it. The first phase is tough, but allows you to find those minuscule windows and come out on top. It even becomes a satisfying
Also,
loop
full
after
dodging
running.
combos
Then
are sick
Mikkel
as
rains
fuck.
on your
Like,
parade.
yeah, has he not experienced the satisfaction of learning an entire combo and nailing the timing on every single part of it?
Magic spam
Or
and
does
supercharged attacks that feel anything but fair. This is an unprecedented level of bullshittery.
Feel
that
anything but fair.
we've never.
I think I want to remove the words fair and unfair from my vocabulary when I speak about FromSoft games. I think it's like they could be applied fairly in certain cases, but like I think it just does more harm than good to the discourse.
Ever seen across 7 games. Radahn's second phase is the product of cheap difficulty escalated to the extreme. I'm not just claiming it with no evidence either. I brought the receipts. There were a lot of early reviews comparing the final boss to another phenom of aggression, Ishin the Sword Saint. There's no shot an Elden Ring boss would have more demanding attack uptime than Sekiro, right? I viewed their second phases and totaled up how many times they attacked in the first 30 seconds and noted how long the animations were from wind-up start to hitbox end.
I'm gonna skip this whole thing because it's meaningless. Okay, should I watch it for the memes? Okay.
Team clocked in at a whopping 14 attacks over 30 seconds. Yet the deflect system and minor breathers in between attacks notched only 43% attack up.
Why am I watching it like I'm expecting valid points? We're making fun of these people. Like fucking we're here to shit on everybody. This is not.
He's on the offensive, but leaves fair
There's no good
opportunity for the player
criticism to be
attack,
found.
heal, reposition, and counter during uptime via the deflect system. As for Radahn, if you include the holy after effects as their own attack,
why would
which you should, considering that.
What? Are you? What?
They are separate, delayed hit.
You can dodge them with the same roll if you just do it right. Oh, come on, man.
Boxes. The Consort of Death unleashes 33 attacks over 30 seconds with 90% uptime.
That sounds fucking sick, dude. And it's still possible. That's crazy. What an achievement.
In perspective, Ishin leaves 34 seconds per minute for you to breathe, while Radahn gives you 6. All the while putting out over double the number of attacks.
That's like counting every Mesmer thrust when he's up in the air as a separate attack. Yeah, dude. Dude, actually Mesmer has like a 0.03 seconds of downtime because the huge Gilgamesh Fate Zero attack that he does is like 1,000 attacks in a millisecond. Mesmer is literally, mathematically, the most unfair boss ever conceived.
1 per second.
Ignore the fact that he's one of the easier ones in the DLC. That's meaningless. Look at the numbers, man.
More often, with longer animations, and all with less fluid defensive options due to mediocre combat speed for the player by comparison. Looking at other bosses across the series against the DLC, you can see how the games have slowly closed this attack uptime gap. The only exceptions are Bloodborne
and numbers, Demodcracy, what do they mean? Wait, is he not even gonna like...
By comparison,
okay, let's just watch this whole section uninterrupted and enjoy it.
1 per second. 6. All the while putting out over double the number of attacks, more than 1 per second. Radahn attacks more often, with longer animations, and all with less fluid defensive options due to mediocre combat speed for the player by comparison. Looking at other bosses across the series...
Oh, wait, okay, hang on. Okay, I mean, like, this point is meaningless anyway you want to make it. You're gonna go to Demon Souls, though? Like, what are you doing? What point do you think you're making?
It's the DLC. You can see how the games have slowly closed this attack uptime.
I mean, I guess that is true, but, like...
Exceptions are Bloodborne and Sekiro, the games most heralded for their unique
the boss you crouch and dodge 60% of his attacks.
Against Souls players getting good. It's not that these two games don't have bosses that attack frequently, it's that they give players the tools to succeed against them. You have more accessible counters and gun parries and deflections. You have stagger on hit.
As opposed to Elden Ring, which has a distinct lack of tools aside from a bonk.
Most bosses. Transformation attacks and shinobi tools stun, fill gaps, and increase your range, and both rewards your performance through increased posture damage in Sekiro for adept deflections, while Bloodborne offers more attack uptime with timely quick steps and rallying back health to reward aggression.
There's no difference between the quick steps and dodging, okay? There's literally no difference. It is only a visual distinction. And a slight uptick in your like the amount of activity you're able to do because you're still standing through the whole motion. I think that might not even be true. Okay. No parry tier, no guard counter, no great shields, no Ash of War to dodge. Yeah, no. Just raw dog it, dude. Right, and then pretend it's the game's fault when you can't fucking beat the fight. Also, never look into positioning, solutions, jumping or crouching, strafing. Yeah. If I can't play the game like Dark Souls 3, it's bad. That's the standard. That's the standard we all want to have, right?
Ring, you get to withstand an unprecedented...
Because that's the intended way to play, right?
flurry of offense while barely having anything more at your disposal than was offered almost a decade ago in Dark Souls 3. Attack uptime only tells the story at a high stand an unprecedented flurry of offense while barely having anything more at your disposal than was offered almost a decade ago in Dark.
How do you say something like that and anyone takes you seriously afterward? Okay.
Of offense.
Just because you don't use them, like, you're doing this to yourself. Oh, Hacktech, what's up, man? Sure, let's compare Artorias to Mesmer, like that's 1-to-1. It's not like the player's also gotten faster and he's like 4 times the stamina in Elden Ring. Like, yeah, like what? These cross-game system comparisons are fucking meaningless. Like, this whole section, that's why I said I wanted to skip it at first, because this is nonsense. Like,
while barely having anything more at your disposal than was offered almost a decade ago in Dark Souls 3.
A lot of these people came to Souls at DS3. I mean, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Time only tells the story at a high level. Looking more closely, the DLC is rampant with large get-off-me AoEs that one-shot anyone who dares take the only lengthy...
Do you know why they gave so many bosses get-off-me attacks? Demodcracy, Feeble King, Joseph Anderson. It's because if you know how to fight them right, you get into a flow state where you are able to always attack, okay? If you get good enough, they need those attacks to stop you from killing them too quickly. And I know that because I've done it with Godric. He's like the boss that's like easy enough that I've gotten to that level with him. If he didn't have that wind attack, he would be a joke, dude.
Opening available, persistent hitboxes on attacks that decrease the error margin to dodge or jump even further, and a lack of restraint with special effects that obscure visibility. Mesmer, for example, is a boss I quite like. While he's still amplified to Elden Ring's levels of absurdity, there is clear downtime to gain from adept evasion and understanding of his moveset. Yet I was frustrated when learning the fight, because his magma effects and snake transformations
because it took too long and it hurt your Dark Souls veteran ego. Oh, you feel entitled to success and the game dispelled you of that notion and it hurts this time. Oh.
They're hard to read and respond naturally. Instead, I had to get pummeled a dozen times until I could memorize dodge timings. This was better executed as recently as the base game. For all the things we could pile for, the majority of her attacks have very clear tells. The clicks of the prosthetic, the motion of her blade, sliding it down with subtle sparks flying, different postures, quick steps, and jumps were all clear and intuitive to understand.
No, they weren't.
Readability isn't the only victim
No,
of
they were
excessive
not. You only feel this way now because you played it so much. If Melania had been in the DLC, you would be bitching about her too, and not just Water Polo Dance.
Effects.
No, probably not, because she doesn't have the pace stuff going on that a lot of the other bosses do. But I don't know. I have a feeling he wouldn't be saying those were intuitive, clear tells had she not been a part of the base game.
Great optimization and performance has never been FromSoft's strong suit. Yet I can't recall even Bloodborne dropping frames as badly as this DLC. Divine Beast's weather effects should have forecasted
That
a
did
chance
happen to
of
me
raining
like
frame
a
drop.
couple times. There were a few attempts that I lost to Radon due to frame drops, but like I wasn't going to win them anyway. It was nowhere close to when I actually won.
Rolana's moon bombs took my frame rate with them. Mesmer's quick camera motions.
PS4
and
performance on
bombastic
Bloodborne was
flames
not
tanked
great.
Frames. Megalith's
Well, I was
flashbangs
talking
make
about. I meant
my
the
game.
Elden Ring DLC. It is pretty poorly optimized as far as I understand. I don't know. I have a really good computer, so I didn't have that much of a problem with it. But
Chug, and the worst of the bunch wasn't even a remembrance boss. I suffered fighting my billionth Deathrite bird in an erratic slideshow from the overabundance of flora and flames.
so stop.
This is excusing
So
outright
go
buck-
somewhere else and don't fight the Deathrite bird. You don't have to. Yeah, it was just Lion and Radon for me. I think Bale actually had one or two where I dropped frames.
Bugs like DeathKnight.exe that stopped working in the middle of our fight. I didn't want to win like this, so I tried jumping on him to wake him up, and lucky me, I guess. If none of this happened
Why
to
would you even include this in the video? I get it's funny, but like this is this supposed to be actual criticism? Like, yeah, weird glitchy shit happens now and again. Maybe you shouldn't have put the video out. Okay, let's check, because it still exists. I thought he deleted this video. Didn't it? Okay. When did the DLC come out again? Sorry, I thought it said June 24th there. All right.
I'm glad. But this shouldn't happen to anybody. Nobody deserves a lesser experience by dumb luck. As for stylistic decisions like
I
excessive
misread it.
special
That one
effects
was
and
on
stringing
me.
the camera for Bale and the hippo and a
Ooh,
bouncy
okay.
ball in their crotches, can't say
I was about to blow up because 4 days, that is quite a rush, isn't
I
it?
think it's worth the cost. Adding the flurry of oppressive offense, obscured tells, and poor combat performance together, I reiterate FromSoft's arm race against the player base. In director Hidetaka Miyazaki's own words, the sense of achievement players gain from overcoming these hurdles is such a fundamental part of the experience.
Yes.
Part 5. The Stubborn Soloist. I too find the sense of achievement from overcoming fair and balanced hurdles a fundamental part of what I love about FromSoft Souls-likes. They have well trained me over 7 games to enjoy the struggle, and
It's just like everybody wants to use the word unfair to describe a lot of things in these games, but nobody can ever explain why in a way that actually explains it.
bested against all odds. That training paid
Except like something like Dark Souls 2. Like it has to be that blatant, I think.
off. Yesterday's challenges no longer seem significant by comparison. After conquering Shadow of the Erdtree, even Elden Ring's base game bosses fall behind. I faced Millennia before and after the DLC. Before, she took me a dozen attempts, and after, I was able to beat her on the first try.
Yeah.
Bosses like
Hell yeah.
Godfrey and
It's
Radagon
awesome.
that were once daunting for me fell easily, not only from skill honed by the DLC, you now gain an absurd amount of runes through it. You may not carry your
Yeah.
blessings into the
You don't have to
Erdtree,
use them, though.
but you carry millions of runes that scale you well beyond what new game
Not
lets
if you don't use them. This is such a personal problem.
Don't even get me started on previous games. Going back to those bosses feels like I'm having a nice picnic in a field of flowers with all the downtime they offer. All of this is to say, I understand their desire to keep escalating the challenge. The problem is there's an extremely fine line of balance between frustrating and fun. FromSoft thus far has set a gold standard in that arena more often than not. If Elden Ring's base game was the first sign of that waning, Shadow of the Erdtree
You know,
is a
it's
flat
interesting to me that everybody makes this same point in every one of these videos, but they're never willing to just like go all the way and say, you've hit the limit, FromSoft, you can't make these games harder anymore. Stop, regress. Nobody's willing to fully commit because they're all hedging their opinions.
flashing neon billboard with a god draped over it. So much discourse is centered around whether or not the DLC is too difficult.
Or maybe they're just getting there through implication. They feel like they don't need to say it that explicitly, but I don't know. Or maybe they just think it would sound too pathetic to say it that
I
explicitly.
think the discussion
I don't know.
should be about whether or not the difficulty is fun. The way I see it, you have two options to overcome the DLC bosses. Suffer and get good in spite of odds unfairly scaled against you solo, or
Unfairly.
give up and summon.
Just keep using that word, never justify
I
it.
spent a large part of the previous essay going over my problems with the Spirit Summon system, so I'll try not to dwell on it here.
Suffer.
The long and
Yeah. We need to start making a word cloud. Or no, maybe we just need to keep like a counter of like every time the masochism dips into unhealthy territory with these fucking people, and then we like send them a mental health arrest. Fuck. These games aren't cock and ball torture. Like, I don't get it. Yeah, for real.
In short, is designing Elden Ring bosses to be aggressive enough to maintain some modicum of difficulty when you have a pocket ally.
All right.
Makes
You
the
know,
solo
I'm seeing the writing on the wall. We probably should just fucking do Joseph Anderson at this point, right?
experience an optional challenge that no longer feels as fun as it used to. Regardless
At
of
least
your
he like knows how to structure things in a way that makes them interesting.
position on the Spirit Summons include
It's almost like they designed to look unfair at first to create the appearance of an insurmountable obstacle, which in turn provides the satisfaction of victory that the entire series is based on. Yeah, I know. That's the thing, is FromSoft is always very good at presenting something that seems unfair. And it's just like, I guess like the problem that a lot of people are having is like they disengage before they understand it, because they like, I don't know, they feel like they're above that or something. I don't know.
conclusion, the lack of balance for true solo play is
The
a
entitlement
disappointment
thing
for those who
again.
came to expect it from all their previous titles. My disdain for summoning personally has nothing to do with pride or ego. It's that it swings the difficulty too far in the opposite
Have a good night,
direction.
Katie. Sleep
Playing
well.
solo is
Thanks
now
for stopping
excessively
by.
difficult. Playing with summons is too easy to the point of being unfulfilling. FromSoft's combat system
If only,
is
if only
designed
there was like a huge gradient that you could exist at any point along with all the options they give you. If only they had created such a masterpiece. Huh. Fuck.
with one-on-one encounters in mind. Enemy AI is not suited to tackle multiple combatants at once. Bosses attack either you or your summon, requiring them to amplify attack counts and uptime. Their sporadic aggro choices make target selection a dice roll, making for wildly random encounters. Like solo, you end up relying on attempts where the boss gives you good RNG, favorable attacks and downtime when solo.
Hey, Mr. Demodcracy. If you feel like you're relying on RNG, it's because you don't fully understand the fight. That's what that feeling is.
More time focusing
You don't need to fully understand it. It's fine that you don't, but you can't call it unfair.
on your summon to free up your own actions with spirits. I fought Bale solo first, only summoning Egon after winning via a save state. It took me 6 attempts solo. Wanna guess how many with Bale's nemesis? 1. It was night and day. Egon face tanked while I racked up colossal damage for 0 effort. If this was my first impression of the boss, I would have had little to say other than nice ass and nicer voice acting. And yet I can't say my solo experience was flawless either. Bale was just fast enough and the camera awkward enough to make hitting his weak point a struggle. It was a cinematic marvel.
So many of these shitty criticisms, at least for this guy, he could have saved himself so much of the embarrassment if he just did a second fucking playthrough.
Suffering less from the special effect overkill.
It's so much easier on a
tells,
second time
the
through.
Diversity of attacks and reasonable ways to counter. But it felt awkward resorting to hitting the legs and tail when the spectacle encouraged you to fight head on. It feels like a lose-lose situation. When fighting solo, you're punished with aggression designed for 2 targets. When summoning, you'll luck into encounters where the boss hardly pays attention to you, robbing you of any satisfaction.
Benefit of a summon comes with added unpredictability. Sounds like an interesting trade-off to me. Yeah. Yeah, you know? I remember when I, on a whim, like after I beat Radon, decided to help some other people with him, and like his clone attacks were like crazy because he was like fucking darting back and forth between us like a ping pong ball. It was insane. It was awesome.
To Miyazaki's quote in full, if we really wanted the whole world to play the game, we could just crank down the difficulty more and more. But that wasn't the right approach. Had we taken that approach, I don't think the game would have done what it did, because the sense of achievement players gain from overcoming these hurdles is such a fundamental part of the experience. Turning down difficulty would strip the game of that joy, which in my eyes would break the game itself.
Yes.
From the words of the director, turning down the difficulty is strictly against his wishes. And yet Elden Ring provides a spirit summoning system to do exactly that. Unable to find the way
You get that that's not the same thing, right? Like, I know his point is that it's the only solution to make the fights fair. But like, or not even fair, but like manageable. I don't even know what exactly the like level that he thinks they should be is. But yeah.
To increase the difficulty in a fair and balanced manner, they throw a kitchen sink of heightened aggression at you. Meanwhile, your personal tools are stagnant, encouraging you to
No, that's literally, you did that to yourself.
rely on automated elements with no skill expression to solve encounters for you. I'm
No skill
reminded of an
expression.
essay
People
I
just
watched
say fucking anything.
from Matthew Matosis years ago, who recognized well before Elden Ring that Souls combat doesn't have the depth to support raising the bar. Instead, reliance on delayed, misleading attack animations, exponential increases to health, stamina,
I'll make, you know what, every time somebody complains about delay, Artorias has delays, okay?
and
Fuck.
damage output,
You
and
all suck his cock.
offensive density ill-suited for the player's kit, build toward design that is more frustrating than fun. I'm baffled that Bloodborne and Sekiro were brilliant
I
evolutions of
still have trouble dodging Artorias' one delayed attack, okay? You want to complain about unintuitive delayed attack timings? Let me show you how fucking easy this attack is. It still gives me trouble. All right, you know what? I'm not gonna be able to. You probably know it if you fought Artorias a few times. Like he has one delayed attack, I'm pretty sure, and it gives. I still fucking can't handle it. Anyway, the player's tools are stagnant means I couldn't find anything that does more poise and bleed. Still building great stars. Yeah, true.
Souls combat that were left behind in favor of a 5th entry with largely the same tools we've been using since Demon Souls. If the answer to overinflated difficulty is for the game to play itself, why bother?
I bet he felt really good about that last point there, that last sentence, man. He really felt like he did something there, I bet. It's a shame that the other shoe dropped, isn't it? For him. What makes a boss special? All right, you know what? Let's give this one a shot before we do the
Perhaps
stuff.
you know me as the Kung Fu
I'm curious. This is more of a philosophical kind of thing, you know. Maybe we'll get to like understand more of what makes him tick through exploring this.
In the wake of Shadow of the Erdtree, I've been playing some of FromSoft's contemporaries. Amongst a sea of Souls-likes, Another Crab's Treasure is a charming standout. A cute concept,
Oh fuck! I forgot about this game. I really want to play
endearing
it.
characters, robust world exploration, matched with a simple yet engaging combat system. These elements orbit a race to life-altering treasure.
Yeah, I've heard it's good.
Whereas the player's fortune lies in the climactic
It
battles
looks
over.
it looks awesome. Like I am so in favor of shit like this for Souls-likes. Like please, more of this.
While
More
the
silly shit.
tides of Crustacean Ring roar to tremendous highs, these bosses left me feeling pretty low. Left to wallow in
Oh,
fool's
really?
gold, I asked
But
myself,
wait, why do I care what he thinks? Jesus Christ.
what is the secret sauce that they lacked?
He's retarded.
The first ingredient is stakes. The dramatic kind. Battles without significant challenge and purpose become haphazard filler. Stakes are further enhanced by an engrossing atmosphere so stark you can taste it. Finally, a dash of strong design adds structure to the abstract, making the clash unforgettable. These notes working in harmony elicit a euphoric release unlike any other, a climax worthy of capitalizing our adventures. Summarizing those heights is one thing, let me show you the depth behind them.
Okay.
Stakes are inherently woven into difficulty. It's a topic I've discussed at length in other videos. The long and short of it is pushing players to their limits in an engaging way is vital to providing a sense of accomplishment.
Wait, what does
this
he mean
engagement
by
relies
stakes?
on design that juggles fun, fairness, and skill expression. Dark Souls Beta Chaos illustrates how hefty challenge doesn't add compelling stakes in a vacuum. It strips all notion of skill expression by blindsiding you with platforming ill-suited for the player's limited mobility.
This guy is the
Dodging
language
poorly
problem
indicated
that I talked about in the Dark Souls community months ago personified. That's what he is. I'm realizing this now.
sweeps designed to knock you into
You remember those scenes? Did anyone read The Giver when they were in school? I know it's supposed to be like a horrible dystopian society, but I beg for the precision of language rule to be enforced in our world. Holy shit.
hitting chasms is an unfair gotcha moment.
Please.
Expecting you to navigate this minefield without reasonable tools to deal with it drains out every ounce of fun imaginable. Difficulty without engaging the player in entertaining, perceptively fair, and ingenious ways that highlight your talents proves meaningless. If
I'm not even
anything, it
listening. I'm literally just trying to think of more ways to shit on him. I'm sorry. I keep doing this.
illustrates how hefty challenge doesn't add compelling stakes in a vacuum. It strips all notion of skill expression by blindsiding you with platforming ill-suited for the player's limited mobility. Dodging poorly indicated sweeps designed to knock
The Bed of Chaos is, to my mind, if you want to talk about this on like a level that like, you know, I don't know, even like an amateur game design enthusiast would, like, it clearly delineates like a good example of like what is punishment versus what is satisfying difficulty. Some things like err more on the side of punishment, like Bed of Chaos is kind of something like that. Like what are you supposed to do about anything that it does, right? And it's hard. It's like one of the harder things, technically speaking, to do in the game, I guess, but it's in a way that feels very bad.
you into hitting chasms.
And I just feel like it was a
This is
very inelegant way of expressing that point, I guess, in a scripted video. I'm a live streamer. I have an excuse.
Fair gotcha moment. Expecting you to navigate this minefield without reasonable tools to deal with it drains out every ounce of fun imaginable. Difficulty without
Yeah,
engaging the player in entertaining, perceptively fair, and ingenious ways that highlight your talents proves meaningless.
ingenious ways.
If anything, it pulls you out of the experience, both figuratively and literally. Raise your hand if you've ever looked up how to cheese a difficult boss you aren't enjoying. In equal measure,
Wait, is I believe he's implying the Demon of Hatred is unfair.
raise your hand if you've ever looked up how to cheese a difficult boss you aren't enjoying.
Really?
In equal measure, bosses that are too easy fail to engage us. This was my predominant gripe with Another Crab's Treasure. With few exceptions, most bosses were woefully undertuned in the
This
face
feels like
of
it
overpowered
does.
skills and button mashing. Dark Souls 3's Deacons of the Deep suffer from similar frailty. The only expression of skill lies in uncovering their gimmick, that the highlighted deacon is your target.
Sounds like he's never played this underleveled.
This is a one-time discovery made all too swiftly. Their numbers hardly matter either thanks to their slow and sparse attacks. Even when damaged, you'll find it feels more like a pillow than a fireball. The final boss
Look at how big his fucking health. Why do you have a health bar that big at Deacons, dude? What are you doing? Is this New Game Plus? I guess it could. Oh, he has the dancer armor. I guess it probably is.
a late appearance in a last-ditch effort to provide something, yet most builds mow him down before he can do much of anything. Curb-stomping climactic moments is deflating rather than engaging. What we seek is nirvana in the middle
Also
ground.
Embered.
A
Yeah,
boss
Embered for Deacons with that big of a health bar. Okay.
like Bloodborne's Ludwig the Accursed has high attack speed, a wide attack radius, and extensive
Actually, yeah, even if it is New Game Plus, like that's still pretty embarrassing.
that require reactionary, deliberate, directional dashes exclusive to Bloodborne's high-octane combat. Timing these well is rewarded.
Just the fact that
not
you
only
felt
by
the need to
avoiding
Ember. So
damage,
he definitely died there at least once, and he's still using it as an example. Should I be making fun of this guy? Like, is it okay morally?
by giving better opportunity to counter, specifically by targeting his limbs, because Ludwig's
Not even
appendages
morally,
each
just
have
like-
their own individual health, stunning him when depleted,
punching down
and
too
taking
much?
increased targeted damage. The short gap between his attacks, his ability to reposition anywhere in the arena at a second's notice, and how directionally targeted many of his moves are ask the player to make
Punch down
precise
harder?
decisions
Alright.
to best capitalize on all of these weaknesses. There's added stakes in the penalty of dodging with poor timing.
Alright, then you have a mission now, Radius. Find me the dumbest motherfucker who's ever talked about Soulsborne games, and I'll punch down the hardest I've ever punched.
subjecting you to often lethal counter damage. The mountain of quick twitch decision making required here is a thrilling measure of
That would be
skill
a great
rarely
time, by the way,
used
to take a screenshot of my face and link it in the chat. That would have been hilarious. Joseph Anderson, alright.
for the game's combat.
You know, if you factor in like influence, he's probably created the most like dumb fuck opinions about the games of anybody in the world.
Taking a step back from the fight itself, consider what the price
So there's
of
an
the
argument for
resistance
that.
is. In a Souls-like, the most obvious answer is
Sure.
the game's currency, be it souls, blood echoes, runes, what have you. Victory awards them, whereas losses forfeit your current bankroll. Fail to reclaim it before another defeat, and
Oh,
it's
H
gone
Bomber
for good.
guy's up there for that too, though. I do like him, but man, that Dark Souls 2 video is pretty fucking shitty.
Tying this currency to stats and items that make success more manageable is another way of adding stakes. Taking it a step further, currency can be measured as progress. Considering you earn it from dozens of smaller encounters throughout the stage, you could look at defeat as a loss of time. At the extreme,
I
think
like
back
him,
to
but I
the early
schizo down in his DS2 video. I haven't watched it since I played DS2. Perhaps he should be a part of this as well.
days of gaming, when losing against a boss could mean repeating an entire stage, or at worst, game over. As competition for widely split attention spans has increased, developers have added more aggressive checkpoints and failure recovery systems to compensate. This is the essence of why Dark Souls was so celebrated in small circles until FromSoft grew into the juggernaut it is today. They
Don't wanna
created
any
a
more
high-stakes
time
system
my
that
mental
is
faculty
constantly
spent on
gambling
DS2?
your
I
progress
gotcha.
against a world desperate to claim it at every turn. That weight adds gravity to already imposing bosses that more often than not nail difficulty in the manner we outline. Well-balanced difficulty adds engagement, and it does so against meaningful stakes that incentivize you to resist and overcome.
Okay. I feel like when you want to talk about stakes, like, I don't know, Dark Souls is like pretty low stakes, all things considered.
These mushrooms make you feel better. They increase focus and energy while keeping you calm and stress-free. Plus, they cut down on bloat.
I mean, I don't know, you don't really lose that much most of the time the dying.
The final
You
aspect
can't quickly get back.
equally important to this formula is another FromSoft continues to
especially with
champion
Elden Ring.
narrative purpose.
He doesn't mean stakes at all. Yeah, okay, that is the problem, right? Is that he's literally just is thinking of a different concept than stakes, and he's saying stakes instead. Yeah.
Looking at the individual impact on you as the player, what is the outcome of your defeat or victory?
I mean, that's partially on me for not paying attention, but mostly on him for being retarded.
on the character you control. What about your enemy and the world they inhabit? Perhaps this is all a personal vendetta with little ramifications on the world at large. Or maybe it will have cascading consequences for all. Take our battle against Ludwig. You aim to defeat the ravenous specter of a knight who drowned under the futility of his crusade. His misguided ambition rotted to anguish. tormenting his fellow souls of the damned. Felling the beast not only frees
He is
them,
boring. Like,
brings
that's the
Ludwig-
biggest problem that I'm having, is that, like, it's just, like, he says nothing. How do you get a job on YouTube just, like, explaining the implicit, like, things that normal people understand just by looking at them? Seems like narrative stakes or mechanical stakes, punishment for defeat fit his explanation. Yeah, I don't think so.
Ludwig to his senses for a moment of fleeting honor.
I don't know what he's trying to say,
before putting it
because he
into
hasn't done a good enough job defining it.
rest. Battles that tell us something about ourselves, our opponent, and have widespread ramifications add valuable context.
It's depressing. How many fucking subscribers does this guy have? Almost 400k. Yeah. Did he lose some over the Elden Ring stuff? I really hope so.
The stakes of our own crusade. The depth that lies behind this context is the catalyst for atmosphere. Consider how I learned of those damned souls begging for
We're
mercy.
speeding it up.
It's the opening cutscene where an addled soul pleads for salvation. This sets a palpable horror as the beast is revealed. This terror gives meaning to the phase transition as Ludwig's madness
Lose
subdues
4
the
max
firm
level heroes
resolve.
in Darkest
His eyes
Dungeon to
illuminate,
feel stakes.
washed with the comforting light of his blood-soaked blade. His reawakened determination pierces your gaze, a solemn stare giving way to a brilliant score growing frantically bombastic as Ludwig's blows become more controlled. All of this amidst an arena.
So
while
we're
opponents
halfway through
participate in
this, and I don't feel like I know anything more about the subject of the video than I did when we started.
bloodthirsty rage inspires an unforgettable mood. Compare this to your average filler boss and any Souls-like failing to capture any of the same magic. Why am I fighting this crab haphazardly shoved into the middle of this level? There's no stakes at all, as I'm mindlessly mashed out of existence with little emotion to speak of. This highlights an underrated aspect.
I guess this is. No, I disagree, honestly. Like, I don't know. I don't think that the narrative is an inherent part of making a boss special. I think it could be a pure mechanical enjoyment that you could get from it. I don't know. You don't need because he's actually talking about narrative stakes now in a way that actually refers to them somewhat. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it definitely helps. Like, don't get me wrong, but.
Not merely an introductory cutscene, the entire stage is a catalyst for rising tension. The setting, the enemies within, and the stakes of exploration can greatly influence your mood, asking developers to carefully pace levels to introduce bosses at the perfect moment. Harkening back to the meta bullshit once again, the underbaked slog proceeding inspired annoyance in the player before they even slid into its arena, whereas the research hall following Ludwig is a shining example of the perfect interlude. The Tower of Torture gives insight into the church's experiments, setting
Oh,
deeply
this is
disturbing vibes.
completely unrelated, but I was asking this earlier and nobody was in chat. How do you guys feel about the Duke's archives? Because personally, I really like them as a level, but I've seen a lot of people shit on them and say they're like annoying and not well designed. But I think they're good. I think it's a good level. Yeah. First, it seemed like by stakes he meant the crab game wasn't difficult enough to provide the satisfaction he got from FromSoft. Yeah, it did sound like that's what he meant at first. Maybe it's just we're dealing with a lot of imprecise words
Your excruciating ascent
being spewed out in a very haphazard way.
the failed Eldritch Abominations inflicts a stressful curiosity into the final result. Enter the Living Failures.
I feel like DS3 has good level design in general, but its world design is meh. Yeah, that's true. I would agree with that.
Sentient embodiments of a holy curiosity taken a million steps too far. This misstep is not only to the church's chagrin, but your own as well. The stakes and atmosphere may be really good, but the oversized blue goobers lack the final vital ingredient for a compelling boss: strong mechanical design. Bosses shouldn't follow an identical blueprint to the combat preceding them. They must showcase unique elements that contrast standard play. This encourages you to use your kit in novel
Okay,
ways.
I don't think all of these are necessary components to have a special boss. I really don't. I think you could have one that is just pure mechanical bliss and have literally no narrative at all, and it would still be a great boss and a special boss.
Elevating demands and increasing stakes. Yet there's a balance. Bosses
But this is also a very personal thing, I think. And again, it's like a philosophical kind of thing. Let that not take away from the fact that this guy's a dumb fuck, but yeah.
differ too greatly from standard gameplay are ill-suited against
Oh, no. Okay, I'm done. Okay. I guess let's just do it. Let's just do Joseph. Where is he? All right, so I'm gonna we're gonna watch the Demodcracy thing. I am gonna make fun of him a lot, but I'm also gonna see if I can maybe try to be informative as well. If he gets some stuff wrong that we could maybe correct.
It's the Joker and Harley show.
Let's give the people what they want.
Also, I'm fully reserving the right to check out early because this motherfucker is boring as well as stupid. We discovered that last time as well.
seemingly adding wind after effects to his attacks that make
Oh,
dodge
wait. Did I already start watching this? Jesus Christ. He's so
Shadow of the
just
Erdtree
dull.
makes the Ring City, the Old Hunters, and Artorias of the Abyss look like Yoshi's Crafted World. I regularly found myself reaching into my old bag of tricks, only to pull out a note saying skill issue. I took that to heart and
Also, I get, God, I'm gonna, if I ever, this might be the last time I talk about this guy, but from here on out, like if I ever do, I want to preface everything by saying like, he did a take back video on Shadow of the Erdtree that wasn't even him saying that he was wrong. It was literally just, sorry, I was so negative, guys. Like fucking, oh my God, so pathetic. Soy.
as best I could.
The soy is
Even my
leaking
best
out of
efforts
him.
never could have prepared me for what the bosses had in store. Without further ado, here are the Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree bosses ranked from easiest to hardest. Number 11, Meteor Mother of Fingers. It wouldn't be a Miyazaki classic without an Eldritch Paralysis demon. Birthed from fisting Lovecraft's blender, Finger Mommy is all bark and little bite. Well, mostly. This ranking boils down to a simple truth. Packing a wallop in this DLC is a given. Having the constitution of a wet paper bag is not. As it turns out, balls of flesh are extremely susceptible to stagger and bleed. I may as well have named my dual great stars that. Meteor became a short-lived affair of getting claps and flipping
Yeah,
birds and
that would have been
folding
a good name for them.
It's sloppy work, but successful nonetheless. After watching other kills, I thank my lucky stars I never saw her summon finger creepers. As for her transition explosive
Wait,
waves, I used
wait,
iframes
what?
from the first knockback to avoid the second pulse, a clutch example of making the best out of a bad situation.
Alright. This is one of the guys who was bitching about the difficulty too. Holy shit. How is any of the bosses hard with that fucking build? That damage is insane. It really is. Oh my god. No wonder he didn't fucking notice when he used Skidoo Tree Blessings, because his damage was already fucking jacked.
Turned into sheer dumb luck for the Meteor Copter, which I dodged valiantly by
So it
being a mile
didn't
away in the first
matter.
place, even though I had
But
no
he
idea.
still,
Seeing as this was the only
still
time I saw
had
it,
too
it's
much of
more
a hard
than anything
time.
saving my
What a
knees right before
retard.
melee range. Maybe with worse RNG, I wouldn't have hemorrhaged her in one go, but for my initial victory, it was serrated slaughter. Number 10, Shadow Tree Avatar. Schmoovin' Tree more like. Watching a wilted sunflower slingshot itself back and forth across the arena is a sight to behold. The kit that lies between botanist bumper cars and flashbang eruptions is much more tame. Lots of standard sweeps, slams, with a bushel of bloody thorns mixed in. It was some kind of poetic justice.
I bet a lot of
that
people who
game.
make lists like this are going to put Commander Gaius near the top, and I'm going to disagree with that, but
That my build had no effect, while the sunflower sucked me dry. Thankfully, the build-up is modest, striking a fair balance with moderate damage across the board. I am equally grateful that the thorns forego persistent hitboxes. Amidst them, there's safe spots you can use to avoid them altogether, often within melee range of the Avatar's stem. Speaking of, you've likely noticed that I went for the root of the problem. The strategic trade-off is the wilted stock takes far less damage compared to hitting the flower. I appreciate the choice to go for tighter, more risky attack windows, or to slowly saw the stock until you yell timber. You could make an argument this is easier than Meteor, but I'd say the endurance factor of its many phases increase the air margin
no, I
well
wouldn't.
beyond
I
Meteor's
wouldn't
quickly
say it's
shattered
easier
blast
than
cannon. Number 9,
Meteor.
Divine
Is
Beast.
it Meteor?
Dancing
I
Line.
don't know.
Dancing with the Divine Beast is much like a real line dance. A frantic waltz you chaotically abide in the hopes of finding good fortune. In this case, an opening to cut the parade short.
Ooh.
Learning the cues to different steps, like how different rearbacks and mouth movements tell which combo route will follow, is vital to weathering the elemental storm. If you hoist the metaphorical umbrella long enough, you'll find Lion has some of the most forgiving downtime on today's list.
Yeah.
An example is the grab, cued by 2 loud snaps of his jaw. A very distinct tell with a
it sounds like he read a bunch of other people's opinions about the bosses.
dodged, yet it's similar enough to other tells you'd be forgiven for treating it like any other chomp. If you do get hit, as a bonus to treating you like a piece of bubblegum, you're left with red sparks swirling around you. If you heal while these are active, the boss will share in your boosted vitality. One single move
What?
is such a wide swing in
Wait,
its
what? Oh.
the flow of battle. There are plenty more to tango with, all of which are augmented by 3 elements. Lightning shoots ranged bolts and calls down Fortisac style delayed AoEs. These are troublesome as they tighten dodge windows and shorten downtime available to counter. Fortunately, his elemental cycling is time-based, not damage-based, so if you struggle with lightning like I did, you can just wait it out.
It is
There ways in which
time-based.
time to
Okay.
attack
I
after
had
he throws 2 bolts
the
at you,
last time I
but
fought him, I had suspected that might be the case.
primarily did this when I was out of attack range. Ice is next, which focuses more on getting close to you to blast you with ice AoEs.
Yes.
My favorite is the Hoarfrost Stomp, a cheeky nod to the early days of stomping the game with it. If you can jump or roll through the after
I mean,
effects, it's much easier to get attacks in here.
What?
His
I mean, or it's just like a move that it has.
wind phase was short-lived, seemingly adding wind after effects to his attacks that made dodge timing tighter, in addition to a few ranged wind blasts. Later on, you can find
It's
a
like weird fucking people assuming intentionality again. Like, that's a very minor example of it, but like, I don't... It's just a move that the boss has. Like, why are you reading so much into it?
in the overworld that allows usage of Torrent, which didn't really help. The design centers on quickly closing the gap to you, so Torrent's motion was more burden than boom. That's ignoring the line's massive hitboxes that Torrent can't withstand. So you didn't really gain anything of value, and the cost of your added flexibility is a new element, Death Blight. All that elemental bluster now stacks Blight. In addition to a
Ooh.
horde of basilisks
I wish I'd
that
fought
fall
this
down.
one,
I know
man.
whoever came up with this steps on a Lego. I solved it by running around like a coward.
I still
until
can,
one was
obviously, but I
While
wish I'd
Lion has
found it
potent
first
moments,
playthrough.
Strong tells and elemental phases with distinct weaknesses make this an easier fight to master than most, suppressing him just below the average. Number 8, Romina, Saint of the Bud.
I would put her
Saint
below
of Romina.
probably... I think I would put her below both the Sunflower and Dancing lion.
Leaf in my eyes. With so many bosses upping their attack density to frightening levels, Romina's more moderate offensive pace made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Her attacks are all 2 to 3 hit combos at most, with generous downtime in between. She makes up for this by bending in and out of range during attacks, and having long windups that demand careful attention to the inevitable delivery. These long windups are something I've bemoaned in the past, but I have to admit, with Elden Ring's
attack density,
tools, these are perfect openings for the adept strategist. Me, I go unga bunga and hope for the best.
That's 60 IQ measurement from the older vid. Oh yeah, he probably actually is like. Actually, yeah. How much you want to bet? Like he probably used that method of calculating stuff and factored it into this video.
Except that trading damage, even foolishly, is a fine pursuit.
Because he really seemed convinced that that was a compelling argument. Oh, he did? Okay.
My last pixel of HP remains. That made joust between Romina and I.
Well, in the old one, yeah. But
with each exchange bouncing back and forth in favor. Another aspect of her design adding depth is how strongly she rewards positioning. Her butterfly AoEs, for example, shoot at a particular angle, leaving openings in the empty space. If you can predict where this will be based on her motion, you're rewarded for keen observation. Perhaps my favorite aspect of her design is how little her body becomes a hitbox. If her slightest move knocked you to your knees, this fight would have been dreadful. Instead, only active attacks inflict damage, allowing you to pressure her without what feels like an unfair penalty. On the spectrum of buff application from a snail's pace,
it's interesting how positive he's being so far, isn't it?
Her rot applies closer to the snail, making it a fair punishment for consecutive mistakes, rather than an oppressive element disregarding performance. Her move pool is more modest.
Maybe this is a case of him waiting too long to make his take-back video, or not waiting long enough to make his take-back video, because he hadn't heard all of the, like, the more correct ways of doing things yet. So he wasn't ready to say that he was wrong. He was only ready to say that he was being a dick.
With each being cued
or something.
Well by
I don't know.
Blade, noticeable sound effects that accompany them, and careful attention to the motion in her legs. To top it all off, her HP and damage felt perfectly balanced for my build, skill, and the level of blessings I was equipped with. All this praise may be more appropriate for her quality, yet it illustrates how well balanced her design is, making Romina Shadow of the Erdtree's gold standard for average balanced difficulty. Number 7, Midra, Lord of
I guess.
This Mad Monk has one of my favorite lead-ins of all time. The Abyssal Woods are
I feel like that's not true, but
notable attractions are invincible
I feel like Romina is on the lower end of the spectrum. I feel like she's like one of the easier bosses. Maybe even I feel like I would only put Meteor below her in terms of difficulty.
You the suck. This sequence builds masterful tension and terror as you make your way to Midra's lair. What awaits is a feeble man hardly worth your time. That is until he unsheaths his own skeleton to wield it as a barbed greatsword, leaving a husk fueled purely by madness. His jaw-dropping transformation
put flower under too. Really?
That lives up to it.
Yeah, it's not super tough, but
and does so at a modest pace, making it feel less oppressive. There's also a balanced mixture of melee attacks and frenzy spells. The flexible range of Midra's kit makes it so you're never truly safe though, with heavy range on spells, arena-wide gap closers, and lengthy combos. Similar to Romina once again, the long draw of many attacks.
I feel like I had a harder time with the flower personally, but this is gonna be a subjective thing anyway.
Where possible, while the frenzy spells encourage careful positioning. This is key more than ever when he blows his load at half HP. Now his attacks become truly mad, firing off madness with more fervor and frequency. What was once a small splash becomes persisting comet chartreuse.
That's another thing. Is like I would never make a video like this. Like I would never make a video where I rank the bosses on their difficulty, because I feel like difficulty is subjective, and maybe some of the problems that we face in this community with like talking about the game is that so many people want to treat it like it's not. Maybe.
Some blade attacks now being imbued with frenzied flame, the build-up for mistakes does start to become oppressive. Yet the thread from phase 1
I got
continues.
you.
The rhythmic yet chaotic attacks have a reasonable
Second tried it.
And during their recovery. His HP and damage is on the moderate end, especially if you've been counting your blessings. I killed him on my second attempt when I hadn't even scratched the surface of mastering his kit. Once again, it came down to aggressive gambits that pushed the limits of my HP bar and recovery. It felt thematically intense, as if I needed to quash Midra's flame before the overflowing frenzy grew to an uncontrollable blaze. It was tough, but the Inferno is a mere birthday candle in the wake of what's to come. Number 6, Bale the Dread. This fight distills the awe Midra holds in his transformation into a full-length spectacle. If the combat itself is an evolution of anything, it's the heavyweight champion of dragons, Dark Eater Midir. They share a lot of similarities. Flame sprays under center, reared tells into tackling chomps, or rears into wombo
Bale
combos.
at 6.
Tail slaps for booty smackers. It works. Bale shares Midir's cranial weakness as well. Each attack leaves a brief respite to wall up the noggin. Where Bale ups the ante over his Ring City predecessor is the speed.
So
his pauses between attacks are shorter than Midir's.
So we still have Lana, obviously.
Your goal is always to best
Gaius,
to counter any small moves
Radahn.
available. Making these smaller than Midir is intense, yet fairly balanced with the strengths of different builds in mind. I will admit that I personally struggled to adapt to his speed and settled for being a crotch goblin. I also felt that Midir and Bale were equally aggressive, but while Bale's downtime is shorter, his animations were longer to compensate. With proper positioning, this avails higher skill ceiling openings. Not only
you
do
didn't
longer
miss
windups
that.
offer sneaky attack opportunities, it makes it more
Man, I just went back and actually like really got Putrescent Knight down. That fight is so fucking fun. Oh my god, I love it.
I consider him slightly easier than Midir, but still a respectable challenge well above Elden Ring's average. Unless you summon Egon. The man shouting curses provokes Bale's attention so well, you get an all-day access pass to that ass.
Do you need a free, easy way to capture your gameplay? Introducing Outplayed. Record anything on your
This just reminded me of something weird that Joseph Anderson said, where like he was about the Putrescent Knight. He's like, I don't understand It's not, the boss isn't that big. Why is his arena so big? It's like Joseph Anderson is the master of reading into things that like don't, and like creating fucking huge assumptions out of implication, except like the obvious ones apparently, because the reason the arena is so big, you fucking moron, is because it moves all over the place. Like obviously. Okay, my coffee's ready. I'll be right back. I just remember to use that specific thing to say that some wild shit like Putrescent Knight was supposed to have a third phase that they cut for time or something like that. It's just like, fuck. I feel like he's, he really, really is concerned that FromSoft is going to become the next Bethesda. So he's like, always just assumes the worst. Like, it's not that the obvious thing that like the boss is really mobile, so it needs a big arena to take advantage of its kit. It's there was a third phase where it got huge and actually impressive in a more overt FromSoft way, but they cut it because the whole DLC was rushed. Okay. How do you imagine this boss in a small arena and not cringe at the thought of his charges hitting the walls constantly? I know, right? Like, everybody bitched about that with the fucking magma worms in the base game. And that was barely even, like...
To my hindquarters, it was Discourse and Buggy.
Yeah.
This was by far the boss I was the most dog water at dodging. If you cringe watching me roll backward 100 times against the Promised Consort, then I'd better hide my hard drive full of embarrassing lowlights against this knight. In reality, I have no shame. Sometimes a boss is going to have your number.
That's obvious. It is exceedingly obvious. No, you... Well, alright, never mind.
Got the better of him on one of those calls, that's all I need. What I found so difficult were the strange sways and wiggles that accompanied the attacks. I just could not find a comfortable rhythm, and as I failed, Frostbite nailed in my shortcomings. Like others before him, it doesn't stack fast, but if you're struggling like me, it's a cherry on top of an already dire situation. Putrescent's high mobility gave him greater control over the pace of battle, lengthy combos with little to no viable openings increase the error margin, and on top of all of that, I couldn't successfully figure out what I could jump and what I could dodge. I'm aggressive to a fault in these games. I tend to struggle when bosses force me solely to fight on their terms. Even more so when I'm unable to read their tells.
Oh my god. The Putrescent Knight. I think I said this when I was specifically criticizing either him or Joseph Anderson, but like, in a nutshell, I think the melee focus, the melee only approach to the game is like, you fight the boss on their terms until you've gotten skilled enough at fighting them to do it on yours. Like, basically.
Video, this is what we like to call a bona fide skill issue. Looking back at my attempts, it's far more apparent.
And that applies to every boss, no matter how much you might think you have to do it a certain way. Like, I don't know. Except for like the Bed of Chaos, there's pretty much always something else you could be doing.
For a top 5 spot, surely by how well he exploited my weaknesses as a player. Number 4, Commander Gaius. Oh, finally! A big field. I've been waiting for a battle that truly makes use of Torrent. A real jousting match. Or not. The best thing about Gaius is his armor set. It makes me wide. Almost as wide as the Warthog charge that has active damage frames longer and wider than the damn arena. It's frustrating because the tell is as clear as day. I feel like I'm dodging it right, but I still get wrecked.
Well, don't dodge into it, then. Dodge to the side. You know? I never learned the patterns for Putrescent Knight, but I kind of didn't need to and just fucked it up. Yeah, I was really OP fighting him my first time through. It was only on New Game Plus that I had to actually learn the fight, and once I did, it was like really cool. I really, really like that fight. It's so fucking fun.
I gave up. I just ate the charge at the beginning and accepted it as an entry fee. At least his damage scaled well at this point with my blessings, and defeating him gives you a whopping 5 fragments for your trouble. Thing is,
there might have been some stuff that I got away with specifically because of the weapon that I was using. Like there's certain times where I was hitting him, and I think if I had been using something else, I would have gotten hit. Because like the light greatswords have movement patterns to some of the attacks they do, but even so, like I don't know, whatever. Fighting him with light greatswords is just the move, I guess.
Gotten some shadow scaling himself because he is outclassed to the point of being useless. Well, almost. He's still great for quickly repositioning in a pinch. This is editing Demon.
Also jumping over him. Wait.
Outclassed to the point of being useless. Well, almost. He's still great for quickly repositioning in a pinch. This is editing Demon. Turns out Torrent does get scaling from the revered ashes. The change was just so small I didn't notice. When Gaius is up close doing single attacks with generous downside.
Lupine is the only other person I've heard mention jumping over Gaius.
You're chillin'. When he starts layering in tracking gravity magic to hassle you during it, things get a lot more tricky. The far-moving nature of a lot of these attacks moves him out of your range, which, you guessed it, means he'll be charging back in. I guess I'm at least grateful he closes the gap for me, but at what cost? In his defense, he has a few other gravity-imbued gap closers that have more standard hitboxes. Overall, in contrast to Putrescent, I had no problem reading Gaius like a book. The problem was the book used explosive magic to shrink evasion windows, and outright deleted some of them with unruly hitboxes. For that,
also, and by the way, when I first figured out the jumping over him thing, I was just like, I thought that was just like a fun alternate way to do it. Actually, it might be optimal because not only do you get to jump over the charge itself, but also like the tail end of the hitbox where the boar swings its head up, you can iframe by getting off of Torrent. So it's perfect, actually.
This way near the top 3. Number 3, Rolana, Twin Moon Knight. This is where difficulty really surges upward, if we're using first-time deaths as a measuring stick. While they have their
Why would we
moments,
do
most of the
that?
previous entries were one-shots or a few deaths at most. Rolana killed me
If
16
we're
times.
purporting to be objective, why would we?
Now we're
Okay,
talking.
whatever.
I stumbled into her arena with confidence. Only a handful of fragments to my name, and thought surely we're in for nothing more than a market. Something that gently, at least by Miyazaki standards, introduces you to an up-ante and asks you to explore more. No amount of exploration could have prepared me for the child of Pontiff Sullivan and Dancer of the Boreal Valley on steroids. Dancer is the most apt comparison in name, as Rolana employs a flow of blows that are hard to predict. She can route her combos in so many different ways, with no clear way to distinguish when they're over. You have to pay careful attention
he
to
say
her many
it's-
postures
did he
and
say
memorize
16
which attack she can
times?
unleash out of those positions.
For
The scary
to
thing is determining
wait,
whether she'll
what did
attack
he? To what? Gaius?
or not, or
Oh,
find a
Rolana. I don't know.
only a handful of fragments to my name, and this is a measuring stick. While they had their moments, most of the previous entries were one-shots or a few deaths at most. Rolana killed me 16 times.
Wait.
Now we're talking. I stumbled.
Are you fucking kidding me? This is like a pattern that I've noticed too. It's like these people are all sitting here bitching like this difficulty is too much, and it's like you then they say how long it took them, and it's like, yeah, I spent like 2 hours trying to kill Rolana, and it's like, are you I'm gonna kill all of you. Do you know how long it took me? Like, what are you guys doing? This is too hard. This is like too much. This is the bridge too far. Oh, I spent a few hours learning this one boss. Oh God, fucking blow me over with a feather. Holy shit. Are you gonna be okay? Are you gonna be okay?
Stumbled into her arena.
Fuck.
With confidence. Only a handful of fragments to my name, and thought surely we're in for nothing more than a market. Something that gently, at least by Miyazaki standards, introduces you to an up-ante and asks you to explore more. No amount of exploration could have prepared me for the child of Pontiff Sullivan and Dancer of the Boreal Valley on steroids. Dancer is the most apt comparison in name, as Rolana employs a flow of
no.
blows that are hard to predict. She can route her
No. I completely disagree. Rolana moves like a human, which is not really very similar to the Dancer. They dual wield. That's like the thing. Visually, bit similar, I guess.
combos in so many different ways with no clear way to
I actually find Rolana's tells like really clear and easy to understand. Everybody says they're confusing. I don't think so at all. Like
distinguish when they're over. You have to pick
16 times. Like that's nothing. That is nothing. 16 times, and you made a whole ass video.
Her many postures and memorize which attacks she can unleash out of those positions. The scary thing is determining
About
whether
this
she'll
shit being
attack
too
or not, or
hard.
finding a long enough animation to attack in between is often your best window. If you attack when she's idle, she loves to leap 180 degrees behind you and counter. This can lead into a full new combo, which I've seen go as high as 7 hits. Between the blows, you'll have to manage varying speeds of
7
attack,
hits,
throwing off
oh
your own rhythm,
lord.
which, frankly, I never found one. My best attempts came when I decided to step
Third
on her
hardest
feet.
boss took
She's gonna hit
16
me,
deaths,
fine. I'll
yeah.
make sure I hit back
By
hard,
the
straight
way,
to damage
they
her
went
right
too
at the
far
start.
this time, guys.
And then that goes out the window once she ignites her blades. Her damage output skyrockets, making tanking far less viable. And just when you think victory is in hand, you get got by the moondrops unless you have the foresight to leap sight unseen.
I can't reconcile these
Instead,
statements. Yeah,
even
it's
if it was difficult to
insane.
predict her movements, enough reps saw me getting more and more comfortable with what she threw out of
They're
your
all
stance,
like
or at the
this
very
too.
least,
It's like
you
every
have to
time
understand
somebody
which
tries
attack
to
you can
fucking say some shit about these games, they just reveal their own fucking the depth of their own misunderstanding.
In my second playthrough, I found that paid off. I was far more successful at evasion.
Contradicting themselves here and there.
That's not to say sometimes she doesn't get the better of me. I imagine her difficulty will stand the test of time, and it's more than enough to earn her top 3 honors today. Number 2, Mesmer the Impaler. I am beyond well done the amount of times I was embraced by Mesmer's flames. Yet I would argue he's better paced than Rolana. He has shorter overall combos, easier to read tells, and very generous downtime after the majority of his attacks. Why, you ask then? Does he make it higher? First, Rolana is less relentless than Mesmer. Bear with me here for a second.
What?
When you are in her Dual Blade Thunderdome, she's a monster. When you aren't, however, other than some homing magic and
Oh.
slices, she's
I
willing
mean,
to back off and let
okay.
you regain your composure.
Sure.
Mesmer's only reprieve is during the aforementioned generous downtime. You have to make the most of these windows, whether it be to attack, heal, catch a breath, read the wiki for his moveset in real time. Consider fitting all of that. Those wide gaps shrink before your eyes. Mesmer's ability to gap close is unparalleled, with many combos revolving around it. In fact, the second phase's entire shtick is riding a serpent like a bullet train into your asshole. What I'm
The
really
second phase's existence is like enough of a reason for you to not put him at the second hardest of the DLC. Like, holy shit.
here is the one move that brings my frustration to a magma red boil. His suck-in and venomous wombo combo has very little wind-up and great range. Whenever I got caught, I got obliterated. Now hang on, I'm not crying waterfowl here.
Isn't it great that like this guy and people like him are going to be shaping the way that we talk about this DLC for years?
It was very possible to defend against. I am
Isn't
just not
that-
guy.
doesn't that
I
make
was
you
like a
happy?
bouncy ball in a serpentine dryer that's only recourse was poor timed panic rolls. Under more normal circumstances, I was decent at evading the snake, until it took a crazy angle that made it feel impossible to dodge. I didn't want the answer
No,
right
yeah,
this time.
hey,
I was
wow.
getting the answer to
Crazy.
solution. I
Yeah,
frankly
me
wasn't very
neither.
good at fighting him, and I wonder if reaching the peak of Shadow Keep with 7 blessings had something to do with it. In spite of getting beat down, I never felt like it was unfair. I appreciate how much Mesmer forces you to make the most of consistent openings that must be earned by learning his kit. A move pool that I should add is very intuitive to learn once you catch on to the angles he wields the spear, how he jumps around.
He thrusts it.
The second phase
He thrusts it because it's a spear.
requires you to be
Here, I hope that helps.
more reactionary, but the snake has slow windups that suit that style.
What does that
In my
mean?
replay, I could
What
tell
does
how much I
unfair
learned from each
mean?
playthrough.
Wait, did he
Dodging
say
the
unfair?
to make the most consistent opening. Then, once again, the answer is skill issue. I frankly wasn't very easy.
Alright, hang on.
When you consider fitting all of that, those wide gaps shrink before your eyes.
Let me not speed him up so I can actually try to listen. God.
Ability to gap close is unparalleled,
Oof.
with many combos revolving around it. In fact, the second phase's entire shtick is riding a serpent like a bullet train into your asshole. What I'm really
I mean,
getting
yeah, if you fight him wrong.
to here is the
That's how it feels.
brings my frustration to a magma red boil. His
Oh.
suck-in and venomous wombo combo has very little wind-up and great range.
Mhm.
Whenever I got caught, I got obliterated. Now hang on.
Oh, is this what he
I'm not
thinks is
crying
unfair?
waterfowl Here. This move is very possible to defend against.
Uh-huh.
I am just not that guy. I was like a
Okay.
bouncy ball in a serpentine dryer that's only recourse was poor timed panic rolls.
Mhm.
Under more normal circumstances, I was decent at evading the snake. Until it took a crazy angle that made it feel impossible to dodge. So if you want the answer to why Mesmer ranks this high, once again the answer is skill issue. I frankly wasn't
Okay.
very good at fighting him, and I wonder if reaching the peak of Shadow Keep with 7 blessings had something to do with it. In spite of getting beat down, I never felt
mean,
like it was
probably,
unfair.
yeah.
I appreciate how much Mesmer
I
forces
guess.
you
I feel like I was about what I was when I killed Mesmer, but...
to make the most of consistent openings that must be earned.
And
by
also,
learning
your build is ridiculous, again, but...
his kit. A
whatever.
move pool that I should add is very intuitive to learn once you catch on to the angles he wields the spear, how he jumps around, and how his flames ignite. The second phase requires you to be more reactionary, but the snake has slow windups that suit that style of play. In my replay, I could tell how much I'd learned from my initial playthrough, dodging much more successfully.
fucking
in the first
crazy,
phase,
bro.
Yet not so easily that he became trivial. No, his difficulty and quality, like Rolana, will stand the test of time well beyond the first time you snuff out his flames. But let's be real. Could anyone carry the torch to the #1 spot other than the consort that was promised? And the hardest boss, in Shadow of the Erd, to the surprise of absolutely no one, promised consort Radon.
Yep.
Man really turned up in the final hour when no one expected it. I want to know
I
who had
mean,
Radon being the final
if
boss
you say
of the DLC
so.
on their bingo card, because I certainly didn't, though I will
I mean,
say...
I didn't until everything in the DLC hinted at that being the case.
After working poor Leonard to the bone in life, his divine irony was to become a steed in death. To Mikola, yeah, he's finally here.
Yeah, I was half right in my prediction. Back when I was playing Bloodborne before the DLC came out, and I think Trimo, fucking of all people, asked who we thought the final boss was going to be. I said Mikola. I was half right.
For all his plotting
Kinda.
and scheming and seeming like he had some master plan, it was so not like the other gods. He too wanted to bend the masses to his will like everybody else. Well, I'm gonna stop you.
I wonder, did he put this out post or pre them fixing the
And
cross
that's about
slash
how
and
it
shit?
went. Everyone wanted to know what Prime
4 days
Radon would have
ago.
been like. And just as this evenly matched battle with Melania and the lore suggested, the answer is a juggernaut of difficulty.
Yep.
At least when he receives help from the aforementioned magic span.
He's rolling backwards on
Phase
everything.
is demanding, don't get me wrong, but with a handful of attempts, mastering the rhythm and taking the slight openings available becomes a rather consistent dance. It's once Mikola mounts his new steed and reigns the heavens in
You know, it's
between-
like, it's not that... It's more fitting than I thought that I made that joke about the Tenet dossier or whatever the fuck and like the Elden Ring psyop. I feel like the people that like... So there should be some sort of reckoning for these people who were so publicly wrong and stupid about this, man. Fuck. It'll never happen,
every
though.
combo that the difficulty shoots to the moon. While I recognize in hindsight from research, commenters telling me, and watching back my own footage, there are viable ways to dodge the majority of these sequences, especially if you move toward the boss. What makes that so difficult to do?
Like, I doubt
is
this
the
guy even
razor
lost
thin
many
air
subs over
margin,
this.
The flashbang effects that obscure your vision from most angles, and the potent damage output for mistakes no matter how many fragments you guzzle down. It wasn't until I figured out a consistent way to meter light damage in phase 1 for a phase 2 stun in the opener, stack bleed, then dodge well enough to outlast it. I walked away feeling like I mastered phase 1, and that I won a numbers game of beneficial attacks and above average execution on my part in phase 2.
Yeah, that
If you ask
sounds
me
like
to
a
fight
pretty average first playthrough playthrough for somebody who's been playing these games as long as you.
Radon right now, I'm confident I could kill Phase 1 in my first attempt, but I couldn't tell you whether it'd take me 3 or 30 attempts to beat Phase 2 again.
Wow, that sounds great. It sounds like they finally managed to make a boss that's still really hard even after your first playthrough. Holy shit.
Again, I felt the same way about Melania once upon a time. I appreciate that Elden Ring gave us unsuspecting tools to deal with these mountainous challenges, like Bloodhound Step, or Freeze Pots against Waterfowl, or Sleep against the Godskin duo. I've already seen a number of videos claiming to trivialize Radon with certain setups, and I admire those who are willing to experiment against one of the most difficult canvases FromSoft has ever cooked.
That's what you're supposed to do, man. Like, again, experimenting could be as simple as jumping and crouching, but you're supposed to, like, have some flexibility to your approach beyond DS3 roll R1.
I'll be honest, I still can't decide whether Radon is good or not. I have a lot of hangups with the final boss of the DLC being a repeat character, and while I absolutely adore the first phase mechanically, the second veered too close to unfun territory even if I made my own joy by outdoing their Unga Bunga spam with my own until it worked. But regardless of how I feel about his quality, there's not a shred of doubt in my mind he's Shadow of the Erdtree's hardest boss.
Yeah.
That is before patch 1.14. This is future Demod. 2 days before the video was released, FromSoft updated Radon with quite a few changes. In spite of that, I'd like my commentary and his rank here to preserve the original difficulty many of us experienced. In the future, I will replay the
Monkeys on the keyboard ass victory over Radon. Yeah, true.
And reassess him.
I just like, it's weird that he pretends that it wasn't like that before, though, because like that's just like, if you don't fully understand the fight, that's like always how it is. And like most people don't fully understand it their first time through. Like that's just how it goes. That's how it's always been.
For now,
like there's always a level of RNG, unless you're really committing to understanding and learning the fight.
Shout out to the only boss in FromSoft history to be nerfed, resurrected, and nerfed again. Clearly you are far too OP for this world, Star Scourge. What did you
kind of wish I'd gotten to fight Star Scourge pre-nerf, just so I could have figured out what everyone was bitching about. Okay, I guess we'll watch the Feeble King video now.